So welcome back to Jerez, round 4 of the MotoGP World Championship. I'm Nick Harris, sitting alongside me, Matt Burt. Down in pit lane, Dylan Gray. What a lineup on the front row.
Third race in a row. The front row comprises Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo and Marc Marquez. Dovizioso, Vinales and Lace Espargaro on row 2.
Row 3, Pedrosa, Pol Espargaro and Hector Barber. Row 4, Crutchlow, Iannone and Loris Baz.
Heading row 5 is Alvaro Bautista, Bradley Smith and Eugene Laverty. Row 6, Hernandez, Redding and Stefan Bradl.
Row 7 coming up, and that's Jack Miller, Michele Pirro and Tito Rabat. 21 riders, the first European round of the season. The grid is being cleared. The talking now stops. Valentino Rossi, can he repeat what he did in Assen almost 12 months ago? When his last pole position, he won the race. His last race victory came in the rain at Silverstone in August 2015.
This could be a Spanish Grand Prix to remember. Strap yourself in for the ride at home. Marc Marquez, Jorge Lorenzo and Valentino Rossi on the front row. Perfect conditions. A little bit of a curveball thrown in by the weather though. As we heard from Davide Tardozzi on the grid, the track temperature up by 10 to 15 degrees, so some late tyre changes on the grid, certainly for Andrea Iannone in terms of his front tyre selection. Crucial though that Rossi and Marquez don't let this man get away at the front, because clear track in front of Jorge Lorenzo, well, we know what he can do.
Last chat with Dylan before the race gets underway. Boy, there's some interesting tyre selections, Dylan.
No, absolutely so, but I think it's interesting behind the front three, and I think that's the main thing. I think that it's really good that we've got Rossi, Lorenzo, Marquez on the same tyres, because from the race pace we've seen, we just saw it on screen there, those are the ones that should be fighting it out up top, so at least we know that tyres aren't going to decide that particular battle. It is going to be interesting how they'll cope with these hotter conditions, but it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's going to make for better racing. I think the Yamaha might slow down a bit, the Honda might go a bit quicker, which should bring them even closer together, and obviously with this crowd that we've got here, should be absolutely fantastic.
Well, they're now coming into the stadium section. They have been there all night. Packed hillsides away to the left, they come through the Angel Nieto curve and then through the Perugui curve and then up to these frighteningly fast fourth gear right-handers. So it's the Alex Crivillé corner and then the Ferrari curve, and there's those World Championship positions.
Yeah, Marquez leads the way from Jorge Lorenzo, the reigning champion, by 21 points. It's going to be fascinating to see how Andrea Dovizioso and Maverick Vinales go about their business in the first couple of laps of this race. With Dovizioso on the soft front, Vinales on the medium front, they've got to attack at the start when that tyre is offering the best grip. A very, very pensive-looking Lynn Jarvis looks on, and he's looking at that man there, Valentino Rossi, in pole position for the 62nd time in his Grand Prix career.
We're back in Europe. It's round 4 of the MotoGP World Championship. We're in Jerez, the iconic venue in southern Spain. The 30th staging of a Grand Prix race at this circuit. The red flag is taken away. What a front row. Rossi, Lorenzo and Marquez, and we're away.
Rossi got a great start from pole position. Rossi needs to get that lead down to the first corner. Lorenzo's got the inside line. Will the Spaniard charge up the inside? No. Dovizioso tries to ride around the outside of Lorenzo into the first corner. He gets pushed wide by Marc Marquez. Lorenzo has a look up the inside at turn 2, but it's Rossi that leads. Marquez third.
Just where Rossi wanted to be, but Lorenzo is already desperate to get in front of him. Lorenzo, this isn't the first lap that you see in too many races. Lorenzo's desperate to get up to the front. They come now to the Cito Pons corner. Lorenzo getting up the inside. Rossi holds the advantage. He'll have another go down at the dry sack corner.
He will. Great start by Dani Pedrosa on the number 26 Repsol Honda. Pedrosa already up 3 places from 7th to 4th place. Now, can Lorenzo get close enough to attack Rossi on the brakes? Rossi runs a really defensive line up the inside. Dani Pedrosa there, flying through the field. He's now taken Marc Marquez for 3rd place. Dani Pedrosa never off the podium here in Jerez in MotoGP.
Brilliant stuff by Rossi down at dry sack corner. So defensive. Nowhere for Lorenzo to come through. We now come through the Aspar corner into the stadium section. Listen to that crowd for the first time.
Yeah, this is not what Marc Marquez wanted. He did not want Dani Pedrosa getting in front of him. Marquez needed to get away with those 2 factory Yamahas that have been so strong all weekend so far. Aleix Espargaro's up into 5th place. Maverick Vinales dropped 2 spots down to 7th place. Dovizioso got a great start. He was almost up to 2nd place at the first corner. He's dropped back down to 6th place.
Into the Jorge Lorenzo corner, the infamous turn 13. We ride with Marc Marquez. You can see that it's Rossi leads the way from Lorenzo. Pedrosa up towards turn 1. Marc Marquez, I think, a little bit surprised by that. Then we see Aleix Espargaro, then Dovizioso at turn 1. We ride now with Dani Pedrosa in 3rd place.
And I think this is where we should remember Pedrosa is the only one from those front 4 who opted for that softer option front, and that certainly is going to be playing into his hands in these early stages.
Yeah, absolutely, Dylan. Dani Pedrosa has got to go for it right now at this stage of the race while he's got good grip from that soft front tyre. He will run into issues a little bit later on in the race. It's just a case of how long Dani Pedrosa can hang in there in this podium battle. Now, will Rossi again run a very defensive line to stop Lorenzo lunging up the inside, coming down to turn number 6. Rossi is again, look, he hooks the right-hand side of the track. There's no way through for Lorenzo to attack on the brakes. Marquez closes up on Dani Pedrosa, runs in too hot, loses 6 or 7 bikes lengths there, does the world champion.
Yeah, that was a mistake from Marc Marquez, and once again Rossi brilliant down at the dry sack. We ride with Valentino Rossi in his face, number 99, his teammate by name but in no other way. Jorge Lorenzo up the inside. Lorenzo takes the lead as they come into the exit corner, runs it wide, and Rossi's back at the front. The crowd are going crazy.
Yeah, Lorenzo just couldn't quite keep a tight line through the Angel Nieto corner. Rossi swept back through at the Pelechi corner. Rossi back in the front, then the top 4 starting to break away from Aleix Espargaro. Suzuki in 5th place. Lorenzo has another look up the inside, down on the brakes into the final corner. Rossi too strong. Lorenzo cuts it tight to the inside, no way through. Rossi again holds on. Marquez now back inside the top 3. He's got back ahead of Dani Pedrosa.
This is what we wanted. This is what we are getting up towards turn 1. Pedrosa thinks about getting up the inside of Marquez, no way through. Right, Aleix Espargaro, Andrea Dovizioso 5th and 6th. Vinales, Eugene Lafferty in 8th place. Paul Espargaro 9th, Hector Barber 10th. Batista, Crutchlow, Brian Leononi and Andy Smith, Pirro, Reddick, Miller and Baz.
Take a bow, Eugene Lafferty. He's picked up 7 places in the first 2 laps, coming from 15th place on the grid, looking to score points for the 4th race in succession. He's ahead of Paul Espargaro, Hector Barbera, Alvaro Bautista and Cal Crutchlow. Rossi then powers that factory Yamaha out of the Cito Pons corner, down the back straight. Lorenzo doesn't look like he'll be close enough to attack this time around. No, he will not.
Yeah, but he's had 2 big goes and not got through. Rossi is riding a great race at the front as we stand at the moment. And so I think Lorenzo, right, got to go to plan B now, because plan A has not worked out.
Fastest man on track last time around was Marc Marquez. He was able to pick off his teammate Dani Pedrosa. It was crucial that Marquez didn't get mired in behind Dani Pedrosa for too long. This is where on the previous lap Lorenzo attacked Rossi, took the lead very, very briefly before he couldn't hold that tight line. Rossi swept back through. Marquez now piling the pressure on Lorenzo through the Alex Crivier corner.
Tell you what, Marquez is going to have a go. You just get the feeling through the Alex Marquez corner, and now up towards turn 13. Will he get up the brakes at the inside? No. Good late braking from Lorenzo, but Marquez is right back in the hunt, and Rossi is just opening up a very, very tiny advantage at the front. I don't think it really matters, that sort of advantage at the moment. But Rossi has fought off the invaders so far. Yeah,
Valentino Rossi is going for it at the front of the Spanish Grand Prix. Fastest lap of the race, a 1:40.090. 4/10 of a second lap. Last time around faster than Jorge Lorenzo, 3/10 quicker than the man we're looking at now, Marc Marquez. So Rossi, his lead over half a second for the first time in this race.
Has Dovizioso got past Aleix Espargaro?
Not yet, no, it's Maverick Vinales.
Sorry, it's Maverick Vinales that I'm looking at behind Dovizioso. Right, back with Marc Marquez. Here is Rossi, 46. 6 times Premier Class winner here, a 125 and 250cc winner, having a magnificent ride at the front at the moment. Marquez has a think about Jorge Lorenzo. Here we go. There is Aleix Espargaro. There is Dovizioso, and there is Maverick Vinales. So the Suzukis are doing okay so far.
What a job by Eugene Lafferty. There he is on that number 50 Aspar Ducati. Lafferty, last time around, was only a 1/10 of a second slower than Maverick Vinales, and Andrea Dovizioso ahead of him on track. Paul Espargaro is making no impression pressure on the Irishman. There is Rossi, slowly but surely, just eking out a couple of bike lengths again through this stadium section here in Jerez. The gap to Lorenzo up to 0.7 of a second. Rossi's got the hammer down.
Yeah, and I reckon Marquez feels that he may have to get past Lorenzo to stop Rossi getting away. Early stages it may be. Here they come up towards turn 13. Marquez not close enough. What will the gap be when they cross the line with 23 laps remaining? 23, that's a lot of laps for them and those tyres.
Marquez, Lorenzo's pit board telling him exactly what the situation is. Lorenzo's just put in his personal best lap of the race, a 1:40.3, but it was still 0.2 slower than Valentino Rossi. Marquez again 0.3 slower that time around on Valentino Rossi. So the 9 times world champion doing a brilliant job of controlling this race from the front. Cal Crutchlow's just taken 11th from Alvaro Bautista last time around. Eugene Laverty just lost 0.3 of a second in that battle of a 7th with Maverick Vinales.
Here is Valentino Rossi, 37 years old, recovering from a big crash just 14 days ago at Austin in Texas, and riding a magnificent race at the front, but there is still a long way to go. Maverick Vinales trying to close up on the Ducati of Andrea Dovizioso in 6th place. There's Eugene Laverty, Paul Espargaro, Hector Barbera. We can't speak highly enough about Eugene Laverty, can we?
No, it's been an absolutely sensational performance. Double winner in the World Superbike race here 3 years ago in 2013. Now, if there are issues about rear grip, bit greasy, a bit slippery out there in these hotter conditions, that Ducati GP 14.2 offers some decent rear grip. It's very strong in the wet as well, wasn't it, that bike? So look at Rossi. There's no doubt about it. He's stretching out the field here, Valentino Rossi.
Bit further down, look at Andrea Iannone down in 14th place.
Disaster.
On the factory Ducati. Absolute disaster.
Well, we heard from Dylan, didn't we? He threw in that hard option front tyre on the grid. He'd not even tried it before this weekend, so he's going completely into the unknown in this race. Is Andrea Iannone.
Sorry to jump in there. Very, very close on the brakes to Jorge Lorenzo, wasn't he?
Yeah, Rossi's extended his advantage. Another 0.2 out of Lorenzo on that lap last time around, so the gap now up to almost 0.9 of a second. Marc Marquez just can't find a way by Jorge Lorenzo.
We ride with the pair. Well, we ride with Marc Marquez. There is Lorenzo in front of him through turn 4. Little short straight, then into this difficult right-hander, the Zito Pons corner, named after the former Spanish 250cc world champion, double world champion. Slightly uphill, it's not an easy corner, and the straight itself is about 600 metres long, but it really dips away down into this dry sack right-hand corner. Yeah, it was nearly a second now, that advantage.
It is. Valentino Rossi doing a great job. Dani Pedrosa, that bold decision to run that soft option front tyre, paid off in the very early stages, as we suspected. He got himself up inside the top 3 very early on, but he's already paying the price, because Dani Pedrosa really struggling to run the pace of these top 3 who've all got that hard option front tyre in. Last time around, Pedrosa was 0.7 of a second slower than Valentino Rossi. Surely coming through the 3rd split now, Rossi will have, for the first time in this race, a 1 second cushion. He does. It's up to 1.1 seconds. This is a Lorenzo-esque performance by Valentino Rossi. Get the whole shot from pole position, get out in front, manage your rhythm, manage the race, and don't give anybody the chance to come back. And it's been an absolute majestic performance by Rossi so far.
I think the one thing to say about Dani Pedrosa is, yes, certainly the other guys would now have gotten used to that harder tyre. They can now run that hotter pace. One thing Dani Pedrosa did say was, you can see a lace going up the inside there. Dani Pedrosa did say he's obviously not quite as tough on that rear tyre, so in the latter stages of the race, if these guys at the front have worn it out quite badly, he might come back.
Brilliant stuff there from Maverick Vinales, getting up the inside of Andrea Dovizioso's Ducati and hanging in there and hanging on as they got up towards turn 1.
He'll be kicking himself, Maverick Vinales, because he missed the start completely again. Lost 2 or 3 places on that opening lap. Alvaro Bautista on the factory of Aprilia has crashed out. He was battling for 11th place with Cal Crutchlow. He's gone down at turn number 11 as the Spanish rider. Former 125cc winner here 10 years ago now, as Valentino Rossi just continues to put more daylight between himself and Jorge Lorenzo. Marc Marquez again closes up in the braking zone for the dry sack corner, but he just hasn't been able to show Lorenzo a wheel as yet.
and they are all three, these leading three, on the same tyre choice. So we're not saying, oh, well, look, this is going to change towards the end of the race. I mean, obviously, we're changing between the Yamahas and the Honda, but they are on the same tyre choice. It's a masterclass from the master at the moment.
So I suppose the question is, at this stage of the race, there's still 21 laps to go. Has Rossi gone too early? Is he just burning up his tyres a little bit more than Lorenzo and Marquez? Are they thinking more about the final third of the race, or is Valentino Rossi just out there full attack mode thinking, okay, well, I'll try and build up as big a lead as I possibly can and then just nurse the tyres home in those final stages? It's all an intriguing aspect that will unfold in these next 21 laps or so here in the race. But you have to say, Valentino Rossi, the crowd loving this as he streaks away from the home crowd favourites. Lorenzo over the line in second place. 1.5 seconds now is Rossi's advantage. Another 3/10 he took out of Lorenzo on that last lap.
What do you reckon, Dylan? Is he using too much tyre to get out there?
If I'm honest, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, you would imagine yes, but this is not something we often see from Valentino, like you guys say. But do you know what? He's been working so much. They've said they've been working on the initial stages of the race. Whilst beforehand he'd often come a bit stronger towards the end, have a bad qualifying, not start quite as well, and then be on equal pace with Lorenzo towards the end. They've been focusing so much just on that start, and he was always heading out in these practice sessions on as new a tyre as he possibly could, and always going as hard as he could the second he left pit lane.
Well, a glimpse there of Cal Crutchlow. There he is again. This is a very, very important 19.5 laps for Cal Crutchlow, who needs to finish the race after missing out on the points in the first 3 races of the season. Eugene Lavin is still running in 8th place, but Paul Espargaro and Hector Barbaro are just getting him in their sights a little bit. There's Danny Pedrosa. Well, he took the gamble with the tyre choice. He's now going to come under pressure from Aleix Espargaro. Marquez is desperate to get past Jorge Lorenzo, but he's not finding it easy. But while they're doing this, 1.5 seconds is the gap between them and Valentino Rossi in the lead. Marquez surely will make him. Well, I think he thought about making a move on a number of occasions. He's just not being close enough, and he doesn't want to take too many risks.
Exactly, Nick. He can't get close enough to make it safe and clean. The last thing he wants to do, with Valentino Rossi clearing off into the distance, is crash himself and cost himself precious World Championship points. He also certainly doesn't want to be taking out Jorge Lorenzo in the process. So it's just the fact that Lorenzo's rhythm is almost identical to Marc Marquez. In fact, the last time around, they were both doing 1:45s. This was what was crucial for Valentino Rossi. He had to make the start, because he knew that if Lorenzo or Marquez got ahead of him, then they would try and get away themselves or break up the rhythm. Andrea Dovizioso got a great start on the factory Ducati.
He got hung out to dry a bit, didn't he? Because he got around the outside in the end, didn't he, at turn 1.
But it was the dream start off the dream front row for Valentino Rossi. If he does go on to win this Spanish Grand Prix, he will look back on that start, the moment he dumped that clutch, as being one of the absolutely crucial moments of this race.
And Lorenzo, a couple of times in those first 2 laps, tried so high, momentarily took the lead, didn't he?
Here we go. Yeah.
Turns out 3 and 4, but look at Rossi, straight back at him. Rossi style, absolutely epitomised to the best.
What you can see there, Lorenzo was in pretty hot to make that move up the inside of Valentino Rossi, and he had a big moment on the front end. That just made him run a little bit wide. Valentino Rossi doesn't need any second invitations to snap straight back on Jorge Lorenzo. Aleix Espargaro there looks like he's closing down Danny Pedrosa in that battle for 4th place. Aleix Espargaro, of course, he's got that hard option front tyre, and so he should have more front tyre than Pedrosa, certainly in the second half of the races again. Marquez and Lorenzo, they're just running identical lap times, so Marquez just cannot get close enough. He's desperate to try and make a move on Lorenzo, but he just can't get close enough to make it clean and safe. Again, they've done a 1:46 Lorenzo, a 1:40.7 for Marquez, as Valentino Rossi is checking out, Nick. He's 2.2 seconds clear now of the 2 Spanish rivals behind him. We talked about the prospect of a 213th podium finish for Rossi. Well, take a monumental mistake to deny him now.
Where has this come from, this sort of performance? I mean, we know what a great world champion he is, but he had that big crash in Austin. Has had an easy start to the season. Problems here for Andrea Dovizioso. Has he run off track? Yeah, he looks behind him.
He's got probably there's smoke. You can see some smoke coming out.
I think so. That's a down turn, so 3 and 4, isn't it? Looks like Dovizioso's race is over. Let's have another look. Yeah.
Yeah, he's felt something, that Eugene Laverty was pointing straight down, and Andrea Dovizioso showing a lot of class and all his experience there. He had a twitch as he got on the throttle coming out of that first corner. How's your luck, Andrea Dovizioso? Taken out of podium places in the last 2 races, and now he's ruled out of the Spanish Grand Prix by a technical problem. Andrea Dovizioso's luck just has completely deserted him this year. He was running in 7th place, but he's going to be cruising back to the pits, and another big chunk of points taken from his grasp through no fault of his own.
I mean, he could have been so easily second in the World Championship. What about Valentino Rossi's in turn 13, the Jorge Lorenzo corner? When he crosses the line, what will that gap be? Last time around it was 2.2. Can he increase it even more? Rossi's over the line, 17 to go. Here comes Lorenzo, 2.372. And you're so right about Marc Marquez. They're running the same pace, but there's 16 valuable points up for grabs here, and he doesn't want to take the risk.
Yeah, last year, Marc Marquez was guilty of taking too many risks. Crashed out of 6 races. It effectively cost him the chance to fight Lorenzo for the World Championship. He vowed before the start of the season that he wasn't going to make that same mistake twice. Well, he's been true to his word so far.
Yeah, there's still a long way to go. We will see. Turn 4, one of the great corners here at Jerez. Here's Rossi onto the back straight. 16.5 laps to go for the 37-year-old Italian. Celebrated yesterday with his pole position, and one of his academy rider, Niccolo Bulega, also on pole position. It was a great afternoon for him. Looks like it could be an even better Sunday for him, as Lorenzo just keeps that respectable distance in front of Marc Marquez. I think both of them will be surprised by the pace of Rossi.
Yeah, Dovizioso, a pretty forlorn man from Forlì, comes into the pits. Retirement for Andrea Dovizioso, the 3rd successive race where he scored no points. Such cruel luck for Dovizioso.
This is Rossi through the Crevier corner, the Ferrari corner next up. Flat out in 4th gear. Little short straight down through the gears, on the brakes into turn 13. Lorenzo and Marquez. And Marquez has definitely decided to sit in there at the moment and make a decision later on when he finds out how Lorenzo's tyres are behaving, how his tyres are behaving, making no move at the moment.
Guys, just a quick word on Dobby's bike. Is nothing extremely obvious at the moment. I'm going to try and find out once they've had a little closer look, and then I'll bring you guys an update. Yeah,
a bit further down, Danny Pedrosa just still leads away from Alessio Spargaro. Maverick Vinales 6, Eugene Laverty 7, Paul Espargaro 8, Hector Barbara 9, Cal Crutchlow 10, 11 is Andrea Iannone, 12 is Bradley Smith, 13 Yoni Hernandez, 14 Stefan Bradl, and 15 Loris Paz. Poor old Scott Redding really struggling down in 17th place.
Helmet off for Andrea Dovizioso. He's out of this race. Technical problems with that Ducati GP16. Rossi now just managing that gap around 2.5 seconds, that lead over Jorge Lorenzo. Eugene Laverty has been working incredibly hard for that 7th place. He'll be pushed hard to hold on to because Paul Espargaro has cut the gap on the Irishman down to 0.3 of a second. Hector Barbara's just under a second further back in 9th place. Barbara himself coming under real pressure from Cal Crutchlow, who could do with a first point scoring finish of the season to restore some of his lost confidence. Last time round, Lorenzo was just marginally slower than Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez put in his personal best lap of the race, a 1:40.317. But again, he just has not been able to show Jorge Lorenzo his front wheel at any part of this race.
His time, though, and he is biding his time and making a decision what he thinks is best to do. Does he want to take a little bit of a risk and get in there tight like at turn 13 there, or will he take the 16 points? I think he will see how Lorenzo's bike's behaving, how his own bike is behaving, because there's still 15 laps to go. We're not even at half distance. This could all change round, couldn't it? Well, here we are, we're settled into this sort of rhythm, but it could definitely all change round.
Rossi's just doing a magnificent job at the front again on that previous lap, just a couple of tenths faster than Lorenzo and Marquez last time around.
We're all now having a very good look at Andrea Dovizioso's factory Ducati. He's retired with a mechanical problem. This is the battle for 7th place.
Yeah, Paul Espargaro
has got in front of Eugene Laverty, and you can see the freight train is arriving as well with Hector Barbara, Cal Crutchlow, and I think we just got a glimpse also of Andrea Iannone
Oh, pretty aggressive there by Pol Espargaro up the inside of Eugene Laverty at the Angel Nieto corner. Dylan.
We have the guys were looking very, very closely at the rear tyre, checking the chain tension as well. Davide Tardozzi, the team manager, he now decided, look, take the tyre out, get it away from the cameras, from prying eyes. So they're going to have a look at that. It's not to say that it is what was causing the problem. There's no word yet from the team. They're still having to analyse.
Just remind us of Dovizioso's tyre choice.
So it was soft option front, but medium option rear. That's the medium option.
Yeah.
That's the same kind of tyre that the guys at the front are running as well.
Thank you very much. Valentino Rossi controlling this race as perhaps a 9 times world champion can. This is a truly amazing display from him. 14 days ago, he had a 100-mile-an-hour crash at Austin in Texas. He's bounced back right from the Friday morning here in Jerez. He has been in unbelievable form, and I tell you what, he has silenced that Spanish crowd as we stand at the moment.
Yeah, the advantage now up to 2.8 seconds, so Lorenzo and Marquez just have not been able to get their nose in that battle at the front of this race. Here is Maverick Vinales, who's dropped 2 seconds behind Aleix Espargaro and Dani Pedrosa. Eugene Laverty, as he burnt up his tyres, trying to run inside that top 10 because he's going to come under real pressure. He is under real pressure from Hector Barbera, Cal Crutchlow and Andrea Iannone. Iannone, who's had an absolutely forgettable weekend so far. Who'd have thought we'd have seen Andrea Iannone fighting halfway through this race just to get inside the top 10?
There he is at the back of the group. That's Cal Crutchlow in front of him. And he will be wary. Obviously, when he's in the race, he will push on, but he knows he's got to score some points. Pol Espargaro scored points in every round and is 7th in the World Championship. Hector Barbera's been in the top 10 every round. So plenty at stake. They break hard now for the dry sack corner.
Yeah, Crutchlow in a little bit hot, way too wide. He can't bring it back to the apex, so Andrea Iannone sweeps underneath the British rider. Crutchlow aggressive though through turn number 7. Bit of personal pride at stake there, of course. Iannone replaced Cal Crutchlow in the factory Ducati team for 2015.
Iannone straight back at him into the Aspar corner, now to the Angel Nieto corner. It's Iannone that holds the advantage. We have just over 13 laps remaining, round 4 of the MotoGP World Championship. This is a fair old battle going on now for 7th place, although I think Pol Espargaro is just pulling away a little bit in that 7th place.
Guys, just a quick word from Ducati. So we've just spoken with Paolo Ciabatti from here. So he said, basically, Dobby said he was getting a fair bit of spinning. That wasn't a problem. But then all of a sudden, when he was going around the corners, the bike really started to actually slide, actually move away from underneath him. So they're not entirely sure what's happened, whether it is some kind of tyre issue. They're not quite sure. But Dobby basically, he just didn't feel safe out on track. That's why he had to come back in.
We ride with Aleix Espargaro. He's got Dani Pedrosa in this battle for 4th place firmly in his sights. Round turn 4 up to the Zito Pons corner, the right, slightly uphill. Pedrosa took the gamble on the tyres and was up there at the start. Aleix Espargaro has hunting him down and getting past him. Maybe a very different story as they come down towards the dry sack corner. 12.5 laps to go here in the red.
And what's happening just ahead of these two on track is Jorge Lorenzo is breaking away from Marc Marquez. The gap between the two Spaniards in 2nd and 3rd is at the biggest it's been for the entire race. Lorenzo's about to move 1 second clear of Marc Marquez. There you can clearly see from the helicopter shot, Marc Marquez really struggling to go with Jorge Lorenzo at the half race distance. So Lorenzo streaking away fairly comfortably from Marc Marquez at the moment.
Well, we said about plan B coming into his head because plan A failed when he tried to take the lead for Valentino Rossi on a couple of occasions. Next few laps are going to be interesting. Can he actually start closing the gap on Rossi at the front?
That's why Marc Marquez...
yeah, that's definitely why.
He's running hot a couple of times at that dry sack corner, turn number 6. That's just his frustration, really, at not being able to get close enough to Marc Marquez. He's just pushing that front tyre so hard at the end of the back straight. He just... frustration is creeping in a little bit for Marc Marquez.
Yeah, I also think, do you remember one thing he said, Matt, during this weekend, that the winglets, whilst they do give you better downforce in the fast corners on the front, that actually with the Hondas, they run even more risk of overheating the front because of it.
Well, they're running pretty much the same lap times, just a little bit quicker as Jorge Lorenzo, but the gap when they went over the line is still 0.28 seconds between teammates. Valentino Rossi, here he is, down towards dry sack, and Jorge Lorenzo. Let's have a look. Will that just change up a little bit? A little bit. It's important now these next couple of laps. Yeah, Lorenzo has broken clear of Marquez. Is it just the mistake that Marquez made, or is it that Lorenzo is up in the pace a bit?
They're just running exact same lap time as Lorenzo and Rossi, 140.7 and a 140.8. Last time around it was a 140.9. There's nothing between the two factory Yamaha rivals. The problem for Jorge Lorenzo is he let Rossi build up an advantage of almost 3 seconds, and even for a rider of Jorge Lorenzo's class and calibre, that's going to be a difficult deficit to crawl back in the final 12 laps of this race. Eugene Laverty under pressure from Hector Barber and Andrea, you know, that's a fight to be top Ducati rider in this race. Laverty still holds sway.
There is Valentino Rossi into turn 13. That would be the championship positions. Marquez's lead would be cut by 4 points with Lorenzo. Valentino Rossi being told quite clearly what is going on. He crosses the line. What is the gap now? Lorenzo crosses the line. Very, very much the same, isn't it? He's keeping it very constant indeed, is Valentino Rossi. Here's Aleix Espargaro. It's a bit like the battle now we saw between Lorenzo and Marquez, wasn't it? He's there, but he's running very much the same sort of pace to get by. But I tell you, if anybody can be a little impatient, it's number 41, Aleix Espargaro.
Certainly can. Marc Marquez is definitely struggling on that Repsol Honda. He's dropped back into the 141s on the previous lap. Last time around he was a 141.3, 0.6 of a second slower than Valentino Rossi and Jorge Lorenzo ahead of him on track. This would be a great result for Aleix Espargaro if he could overhaul Dani Pedrosa. Now, Aleix Espargaro, in theory, should be a little bit more stronger in the final part of the race because he's got that hard option front tyre on. Dani Pedrosa, you would think, unless he can really manage that soft option front, will run into some pretty major grip issues in the final third of this race. So Aleix Espargaro might just be well biding his time a little bit there, waiting for Pedrosa's tyres to go off, as Andrea Iannone now is up into 9th ahead of Hector Barbera.
We ride with Dani Pedrosa through the Aspar corner. It's the fast left. You can see track temperature now is pretty warm out there. Will that have a bearing on the race? 41 degrees centigrade to the Angel Nieto corner. We're back with Valentino Rossi, keeping it constant, about 2.8 seconds between him and Jorge Lorenzo. Been a quite magnificent ride by Valentino Rossi.
So far so good, but Lorenzo in the first 3 sectors of this lap took 0.3 of a second out of Rossi rather. Rossi's over the line, the gap then now is down to 2.3.
Ooh, here we go. 10 laps to go.
Rossi finally dropped into the 141s last time around, and Jorge Lorenzo was a full half a second quicker. So is there another twist in this Spanish Grand Prix?
As I said, perhaps he did have a plan B, realised that just preserve the tyres, hang into second place, see what happens. Dani Pedrosa is not giving up 4th place without one hell of a fight against Aleix Espargaro.
Credit to Andrea Iannone, he is really charging through the field. He's just taken Eugene Laverty now as well for 8th place on the factory Ducati. So Iannone now is the lead Ducati rider. Is it all too little too late for Jorge Lorenzo? Has Rossi got that gap up to enough where he can manage the deteriorating grip from those Michelin tyres not to let Lorenzo back in the victory hunt?
Well, you'd say that he's kept it pretty good so far. 3rd sector time will come up any moment now. This is them through the Aspar corner.
It's down by another 10th. He's picked up another 10th so far. Has Lorenzo down to 2.2 seconds.
Here we are. The 3rd time will come up now. What is it going to be? It's important. Whoa, Rossi fights back, doesn't he?
But Rossi's so experienced. He's been here a million times before in his Grand Prix career. Been there, done it, got the T-shirt. He will know that he can, if he can hold his tyres together. The good thing for Rossi is if he is running into some pretty major grip issues, he has got a bit of a cushion where he can perhaps just back off for a couple of laps rather than keep pushing. Lorenzo will come over the line shortly. The gap is 2.1. So, yeah, another 0.2 taken on that lap by Lorenzo.
Dylan.
Yeah, and guys, just a quick word on Dani Pedrosa. It completely slipped past me on the radar, but he, like Iannone on the grid, had actually switched to a harder option front tyre. So that advantage that we thought he had at the front, at the start of the race didn't exist. But this would make it a lot more interesting now with this battle with Aleix Espargaro towards the end.
It is an interesting battle, but I tell you now, the eyes of the world are focused on this man. Can he close the gap on Valentino Rossi with 9.5 laps to go? Second split time was, well, second split time now. Ooh, still pretty constant. He's keeping him at 2 seconds. Does appear that Lorenzo is faster for that fourth sector, doesn't it?
Yeah, Jorge Lorenzo will need no greater incentive than having his teammate 2 seconds up the road in his home Grand Prix in Spain to try and push hard for the victory. How hard does he push, though? Because, of course, he's already crashed once this year in Argentina, lost a big hatful of points there, and he knows he's going to claw back 4 points on Marc Marquez, who's really, really struggling now in third place. Marquez, he's dropped down into the mid-141s. In fact, Dani Pedrosa last time around was quicker than Marc Marquez.
Here is Rossi. Brakes hard now for turn 13. Here is Lorenzo, corner named after him. Been a pretty good lap so far for Rossi, but this fourth sector does seem to be where Lorenzo can pull back 2 or 3 tenths of a second. We're about to find out when they cross the line. 9 to go. What is the gap?
Ooh, 2 seconds.
Just
Lorenzo again. Yeah, just a couple of tenths quicker.
Probably not going to be enough as we stand at the moment, is it?
Well, we got our answer about Marc Marquez adopting a safety-first approach if he couldn't go out and win the race. Marc Marquez, perhaps in previous years, might have thrown it down the road, pushing to try and make a move on Jorge Lorenzo, but Marc Marquez has quite clearly said, thank you very much, I'll quite happily take those 16 points in the World Championship. Brings an end to his great run of form, though. Took victories from pole position in Argentina and Texas.
Second split time any minute now. Can he get it down to under 2 seconds? Look at that clock on the right. No. Rossi is running a magnificent race at the front into the dry sack corner. 7.5 to go. Rossi still in command.
Lorenzo, he just can't get it under that 2 second barrier, can he?
It's almost psychological, isn't it?
Yeah.
If he could, you just get the feeling. But I still think this race has got a bit to run. Lorenzo's just got to try and up the pace even more. But you're right. Rossi crashed out in Austin. He crashed out in Argentina. They don't want to throw away big points. And there you go, through the third sector, Rossi another 10th. This is the part where Lorenzo just seems that little bit quicker through these two fast right-handers, Crivier and Ferrari.
Yeah, it's quite possible, of course. We don't know until we speak to the riders after the race that Valentino Rossi might just have backed off a fraction, not much, just to maybe give himself a bit of a breather. It's very hot out there, physically demanding race. Of course, these riders, they're like sort of triathlon, Olympic triathlon standard athletes, but it's hard work physically as well. So he might have just been taking a bit of a breather because he has stretched out that lead again up to 2.2 seconds. Of course, what Rossi can do is he can manage the race from his pit board as well. He would have seen that gap coming down from 2.8 to 2 seconds pretty quickly. So he would have got the message that Lorenzo was catching him ever so slightly. And then, of course, Rossi then knows he's got to respond to stop this man, Jorge Lorenzo, from coming through.
That's exactly what he's done, as you can see, over 0.2 of a second faster than Lorenzo. Down the back straight. That means there's 6.5 laps to go. Round 4 of the MotoGP World Championship here at Jerez in Spain. We switch now to Jorge Lorenzo into the dry sack corner. Gap very constant indeed. Rossi just up the pace a little bit. Perhaps he was taking a breather. Perhaps he was looking after the tyres just a little bit. This is Paul Espargaro coming under pressure now from Andrea Iannone, that he was really on the charts now, isn't he, the maniac?
He is, yeah, and a little bit hot though down at the end of the back straight. So Paul Espargaro gets a little bit of breathing space. Eugene Laverty, Cal Crutchlow was well wide down into that turn number 6. He was losing ground on Hector Barbera and Eugene Laverty in front of him. Well, he would have lost at least half a second, maybe a second, running in too hot down at the end of the back straight. Cal Crutchlow, Laverty having a real good battle for 9th place with Hector Barbera.
Oh, that just shows how much he's come on, Eugene Laverty, to battle with Barbera. He's having such a good season. This is Iannone.
Yeah. Rossi got the message all right. He was half a second quicker on that lap than Lorenzo.
You done it absolutely spot on. It was not a breather, but just assessing the situation with his tyres, also fitness and everything else. He's decided we're okay. We've got plenty of grip. let's start upping the pace, and that's what he's doing. So Pol Espargaro crosses the line in 7th, right behind him, Andrea Iannone. The gap at the front between Rossi and Lorenzo, 2.7 seconds.
Pol Espargaro out a little bit wide at the first corner. No way through, though, for Andrea Iannone.
I thought he was going to have a go there, didn't you?
Yeah.
I thought he was up the inside. He's all over the rear wheel now, though, of Pol Espargaro. They go round the fast left-hander, turn 4, up towards the Zito Pons corner. If he can get that Ducati coming out of Zito Pons right on the rear wheel as he has, he should be without drag, you would imagine. Pol Espargaro down to the dry sack corner. He doesn't wait. He goes through at the Zito Pons
Up the inside at turn number 5. You don't see that very often. Andrea Iannone, what a move there. Now, Valentino Rossi, we wondered if he could respond to Jorge Lorenzo. Well, we've got our answer in emphatic fashion. Lorenzo's race for the victory looks like it is over, because Valentino Rossi is now 3.3 seconds clear of the reigning world champion. Lorenzo did his utmost. He brought that gap down to just over 2 seconds, but within a couple of laps, the response from Rossi has been absolutely superb. He's taken 1.3 seconds out of the Spanish rider. Rossi's already over the line to complete lap number 22, and Lorenzo now 3.3 seconds back. Rossi,
it's over, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's over as a battle.
0.7 of a second quicker last time around was Valentino Rossi. There is Marc Marquez, who's almost dropping now back into the 142s. As Dani Pedrosa just pulling away there from Aleix Espargaro. The gap up now over to 1 second. So Pedrosa running in a fairly, well, as comfortable as a 4th place can be when you've got 2 Suzukis breathing down your neck.
And you just get the feeling Maverick Vinales with 4.5 laps to go may just have a little go if he can get near enough to Aleix Espargaro. Is Marc Marquez. This is turn 1. He picked up 16 precious points. He will still lead the championship, I think, as we stand at the moment, by 17 points from Jorge Lorenzo. So that's not a bad job done. He knew it was going to be tough against the Yamaha. He probably felt it would be this man that would win the race, and Valentino Rossi second, as he has done so many times over the last 20 years. He's proved us all wrong again, hasn't he?
Well, all throughout the weekend, all the riders touched upon how tyre preservation was going to be the deciding factor in this race, and nobody has managed it better than Valentino Rossi. There's only been a couple of times in this race where his lap times have dropped into the low 141s. Lorenzo and Marquez are fighting to stay in those 141s now as Rossi comes through the Ferrari corner down to the final turn, named after his great Yamaha nemesis Jorge Lorenzo. And Valentino Rossi at the moment is cruising towards his 87th MotoGP victory, his 113th in his World Championship career, edging ever closer to Giacomo Agostini, who's here this weekend watching from the sidelines.
Cheering for Jorge Lorenzo? I don't think so. Well, Lorenzo will be disappointed, but he has picked up 20 points and he has closed the gap a little bit by 4 points on Marc Marquez. There's still a long, long way to go. And Maverick Vinales, boy, would he fancy getting past Aleix Espargaro in these next 4.5 laps. Well done, Andrea Iannone. Been a tough old time, but he's stuck at it. He's running in 17th place. Pol Espargaro 8th, 9 Eugene Lafferty, having a right old scrap and winning it from Hector Barbara. Cal Crutchlow 11, Bradley Smith a very lonely 12th place. Loris Baz 13th, Yoni Hernandez 14th, and Stefan Bradl in 15th place. Pirro, Miller, Rabat, and poor old Scott Redding having a really tough time, crossing the line now in 19th place.
Yeah, Eugene Lafferty really wants to win that battle of the GP 14.2s. He's doing that over Hector Barbara. There is Giacomo Agostini, 15 times world champion.
Blocking his ears, look.
Yeah, he's just heard that Valentino Rossi is going to close that the gap in the all-time victory list.
Yeah. 2 amazing world champions, 9 world titles to Valentino Rossi, 15 for Giacomo Agostini, 24 world titles between them. Both great riders from a different era, but both bringing success to Yamaha. Giacomo Agostini giving Yamaha their very first 500cc world title, the first 2-stroke to win a 500cc world title. Following in that tradition, number 46 has 3 laps to go.
Yeah, the response from Rossi from what's been a fairly mixed start to the World Championship by his standards. Of course, he was 4th in the opening round, never really made any moves on Andrea Dovizioso, Jorge Lorenzo and Marc Marquez in that battle for the podium in the first round. He was very lucky to get on the podium in Argentina with Maverick Vinales and the 2 Ducatis crashing out in front of him. A heavy crash 2 weeks ago in Austin at the Circuit of the Americas. When you're 37 years old, you've been racing Grand Prix motorcycles for 20 years. Those crashes get harder to get over, but Valentino Rossi's response has been nothing short of sensational.
It's one of his great Grand Prix wins, this, isn't it? Okay, it hasn't got the drama perhaps of other wins we've seen, but this is a 37-year-old guy that is still so bitterly disappointed at losing the championship last year and producing a ride like this. You don't see this too often from a guy, you know, not that far short of 40 years old.
Yeah, this has been the doctor giving Jorge Lorenzo a taste of his own medicine, hasn't it, really? That's what it's been.
Absolutely spot on. That's exactly what he's done.
And I think it was really interesting then just looking at that riding style comparison, because you could see that Valentino Rossi actually had quite a bit more lean angle in exactly the same turn. Jorge Lorenzo actually had to stand the bike up quite a bit just to get round there, which obviously must show that Lorenzo must, you know, that's obviously why he's dropped off now, just lacking that little bit more extra edge grip, which Rossi still seems to have.
2 laps to go for another victory for Valentino Rossi. It would be his 113th Grand Prix win as he comes up on that M1 Yamaha into turn 1 here at Jerez. 4.2 seconds separate him and Jorge Lorenzo. Marc Marquez has crossed the line in 3rd place. Dani Pedrosa 4. Aleix Espargaro and Maverick Vinales fight it out for 5th place. Andrea Iannone hasn't even arrived yet in 7th place. That's the pace this man has run at the front as Iannone crosses the line.
Yeah, for Valentino Rossi to win here in Spain, really demolish Jorge Lorenzo and Marc Marquez in truth. He'll be loving this, won't he, Valentino Rossi? Of all the places to return to winning ways, this will be his first Grand Prix victory since that wet British Grand Prix at Silverstone. That was last August, so it's been a long time since Valentino Rossi's tasted the victory. He will be absolutely revelling in this,
I don't think he'd want to do it in any other place but here, do you? Perhaps in Mugello, but for various reasons, here just suits him quite brilliantly, doesn't it? Knee down for Marc Marquez, been a difficult race for him. I think a couple of moments made him realise, go for the 16 points, don't take too many risks. And I think it's a very wise decision.
Yeah, Marc Marquez has absolutely 100% been thinking about the bigger picture of the World Championship. Damage limitation in terms of that for him. He'll only lose 4 points to Jorge Lorenzo. His advantage cut from 21 to 17 as Valentino Rossi crumbs over the line to start the final lap of what's been one of his more memorable wins in recent history.
Jorge Lorenzo up at turn 1. He's going to pick up 20 valuable points. Certainly hasn't been a disaster for him. Certainly not been a disaster for Marc Marquez. I think alluded that perhaps the 2 Yamahas may just have too much pace for him in this race. That certainly proved to be the case. But we've all watched Valentino Rossi in action over the last 20 years. Perhaps some of us thought that veneer was fading. He's just put another coat of varnish on it, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's heading for his 7th victory here in the Premier class in Jerez. Yesterday was his first pole position here since 2005. It's been rolling back the years, this performance,
hasn't it? And the timing of it, after the Austin crash, after a difficult start to the season, after Lorenzo took all the headlines going to Ducati, is Rossi-esque, isn't it? It's just what Valentino Rossi does.
Well, you know, Jorge Lorenzo and Marc Marquez won't like having their noses rubbed in it in front of their home crowd in Jerez at all, will they, in Spain? Rossi's mechanics, they've been with him throughout his World Championship career in MotoGP. They're already on the pit wall, ready to give him a hero's reception.
Here comes Valentino Rossi into turn 13, named after his great rival, but a man who had to finish second today, Jorge Lorenzo. Rossi crosses the line now to win his 113th Grand Prix. He's back on it. He's a championship contender.
Rossi does indeed reign in Spain. Jorge Lorenzo in second place. Valuable 16 points for Marc Marquez. He never could get himself in victory contention. Dani Pedrosa, for the first time in his Premier Class career in Jerez, finishes off the podium places. Aleix Espargaro wins the battle of the two Suzukis in 5th and 6th place.
And a great ride by Andrea Iannone right from the back of the field. Had a miserable weekend. In the end, puts the Ducati in 7th place. Paul Espargaro in 8th. Another tremendous ride by Eugene Laverty. Yeah, 9th. And it's Hector Barbara down in 10th place. Kel Crutchlow 11th. Bradley Smith in 12th place. But the headlines, the stories will all be about one man. He's 37 years old. Comes from Davula in Italy. He's a 9 times world champion, and he's shown the world that he is still a master of his profession.
Thought he was going to stop and jump in the toilet at the side of the track again. They did that a few years ago here in 125, didn't he, Valentino Rossi?
Oh, he's going to sit side saddle coming down towards her.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant performance by Rossi.
That is just as if he's saying, well, yeah, side saddle, pretty easy old ride in the old countryside today, yeah. Brilliant. You cannot take anything away. That was superb. I'm sure Lorenzo is disappointed, but in the big picture, it's not the end of the world for him, is it?
Yeah, Jorge Lorenzo, a small consolation prize for him, I suppose, is the fact that he is now the 3rd rider in MotoGP history to reach the 100 podium milestone. I think it will be a small consolation, though, for him when he sees that Valentino Rossi was in commanding form. Lorenzo just couldn't get close enough. That's what it means to him.
Yeah, it does. I think Andrea Iannone trying to get alongside to shake his hand.